Well, thank you very much, Beth. Thanks to the organizers and the program committee to let me talk about an issue which is really priority for us for quite a while. The title is awfully complicated, so forget about the title. It's on human-cat relationships. And the people here is the most important people in our research are Iris Schöberl to the right and Manuela Wedel in the middle. So I wouldn't have want to start without mentioning them. Well, this is an important topic because cats are the most common companion animals in the world. Approximately 300 million are there, and this is roughly 3 times as many as there would be dogs in companion relationships. In Austria, for example, we have 700,000 dogs, but 2.2 million cats with a human population of 8 million, so that's quite a lot. So today, most of them are actually not mouse catchers, but social companions, particularly in Islamic cultures, which do not regard dogs too highly. So what are the association domains actually between humans and their companion animals, dogs and cats? For dogs, this is a very historic thing. For dogs, humans are always a source and a resource. I don't go into this, but this is a complex theme. I mean, for wolves, this is already true, and it's even more true for dogs. There's the old spiritual roots and links, which we may still irradiate into present times. Of course, dogs are all the time. They have been utility, pest control, waste management. I don't go into this, you know what I mean. Dogs were used for warfare from the beginning on. There were no human armies without dogs, never. They were hunting companions, they were partners for activities, for outdoor activities together. And of course, dogs are nowadays mainly social companions. What about cats? Well, you can cancel warfare and hunting. And also cats are not terribly useful partners for frisbee. But of course, cats are really, really important social companions for many of us. But that's a bit odd, because how can a relatively non-social animal or an animal from relatively non-social ancestry become one of the major social animals for for human companionship? And so how can that be? Well, we heard a little bit about this already, and I also should say thank you to Sam Gosling for this wonderful background he gave today, because much of it applies to what I want to say. Well, it turns out that the degree of sociality in vertebrates depends on the ligand variation in the social brain network and in the mesolimbic reward system. There are relatively new papers out. I won't go into these brain mechanisms here. You can see there's a certain network in the hypothalamus and tegmentum, which is called the social behavior network. And linked with that, intricately linked with that, is the mesolimbic reward system. And both systems provide the basis for social decision-making in all vertebrates, from fish to man. And this is extremely conservative brain systems in anatomy, function, gene expression. They remained unchanged for 450 million years. If you just think about that's really mind-boggling, I think. But the more variable system of ligands produced this interspecific variation in social orientation. That's not the only factor, of course, but it's the main factor we know today. So there's the central role of the oxytocin system for social orientation and bonding. And if you're really interested in that as the basis for being social with our companion animals, I want to draw your attention to the fact that we just issue a book on this, on attachment to pets, which is the theoretical base of all human-animal companionship in the social domain. Okay, so how did it come about that so from the relatively not asocial, but from the relatively non-social ancestors, cats became more social? It was clearly the process of domestication. It was the selection for docility, tameness, and social orientation, which made cats more sociable with humans and with themselves. Think about the groups of feral cats we have in virtually all big cities of the world. that would not really be possible with the feral ancestor. You need a domestication process in between, and yet then you get these feral groups. But there's much greater variation of sociability and intensity of bonding in cat-human relationship than in dog-human relationship. Let's face it, dogs are kind of bound to be bonded. They have no choice. Cats have. So this is due, as we know, to genetic factors, to breed, genetically based anxiety, for example. Dennis Turner, Sandra McCune, and other people have worked on that, on epigenetic mechanisms, on early socialization with humans and other factors. Hence, many cat owners think that their cat relationships are unique because, well, they want to think that, and because partially it seems to be true. But is this so? It's not very likely due to the nearly identical social brain networks we face, this mesolimbic reward system and the prefrontal cortex, and also the control system, the prefrontal cortices, we really share within the mammals at least. So this dyadic structure of human cat, is it all unique, or do we find some rules in there? Well, what's already known is quite something. Women are more interactive with their cats than men. Cats correspondingly approach female owners more frequently than male owners. Relationships between domestic cats and owners are complex with contributions from both sides. What a surprise. Owners often report a perfect fit with their cats. Why do you laugh? Okay. This may be due to the flexibility and variability of social behavior in both species, notably cat. Cat behavior and time spent interacting with the owner have been found influenced by owner activity, mood, gender, and age. And the greater the cat's success soliciting the owner to interact, the longer the duration of interaction. And if the owner complies with the cat's attempt to interact, so cats are negotiating animals, right? The cat complies with the owner's wishes at other times. If the owner does not comply, then neither does the cat. That's very nice, because this indicates some potential for dyadic negotiation, which we find in every dyad, be it human-human, human-dog, because never the interests of the two parties are symmetrical and they do not stay the same over time. So there's always space and necessity for negotiation, and cats do that pretty nicely with their owners, we think. Well, what we found in a parallel study in human-dog is that basically we found this contingency that owner personality would shape, would be contingent with owner attachment and attitude to the animal. That would be contingent with owner interaction style and dyadic interaction patterns, and this with dyadic operationality in practical tasks, expression of personality in dogs, and dynamic stress modulation. So we also found significant effect of owner gender and dyadic social structure, and we proposed that similar rules may apply for human-cat dyads or for any dyadic relationships in social animals, including man, based on what I said at the beginning. Okay, so what we predicted for human-cat was that individual and social factors will affect behavior and interactions and temporal structuring of human-cat dyads. This will be the most complex part of my talk, and I hope I get the message through. So important will be sex of owner and cat, age of owner and cat, personality of owner and cat, duration of living together, and a few other things. For example, we hypothesized that the human personality dimension neuroticism, thanks Sam for giving this great introduction, has an impact on the dyadic temporal patterning, because owners scoring high neuroticism might be in particular need of social support and therefore tend to consider their cats as social supporter or are needy of social support by their cats and would seek more contact with their cats, giving the cats really an edge to negotiate. And I think that's what's going on. So the structure of the study was pretty simple. We visited 40 human cat dyads with certain features of the human partners and with certain features of the cats. You see, we didn't get a completely even sample with regard to owner gender or cat sex, but that didn't matter. We paid them 4 visits at home, which is kind of something which is a little bit difficult because this is a private setting, and of course by visiting them, not many people are really fond of that, and by visiting them you are also influence cat and owner behavior. We knew that. All meetings were videotaped, and all behaviors were analyzed from videotape, cat and owner, and we had ethograms of the two we worked with, and then we applied this string of behaviors. I mean, you have a timeline, and you code the behavior, and you have the behaviors on this timeline, and then you feed them in a software called Theme, which kind of analyzes the string of behaviors and finds pattern for you, because people, or the humans are very good observers of social relationships. We are very keen in that if we are properly socialized when we were young, right? But we are absolutely lousy in seeing temporal structure in behavioral strings. I think evolution made that a purpose. We shouldn't do that because it's important in how people relate to each other and how partners find each other. So you shouldn't be conscious about that. So you have to have an instrument analyzing this for you, and this is the thing. So there's an algorithm going through the string of events, and what you find is, and then this algorithm finds that, for example, cat stand, owner talk to cat. These two behavioral categories are significantly linked to each other. They always come in pairs, and then the algorithm runs through again, and then it finds, okay, cat meow is linked to this pattern, and then you get this hierarchically structured pattern, which become more and more complex, and then you get these aha effects because you get something which you already saw, but you didn't, but your impression was not that this is a significant thing. And in these patterns, owner-cat dyads are really nicely different. You will hear that in a second. So the parameters of our study included owner personality. Sam was already talking about the 5-factor inventory, and the elements are usually, and they are ranked according to the contribution they make to explaining the variability in data set, neuroticism, extraversion, agreeableness, conscientiousness, openness. It's not as easy as you might think because these things are not independent. From the literature and from our own data, we know that the first 4 factors are actually correlated with each other, and openness is independent. So this allowed us to do a PCR and to reduce this 5 dimension to 2. Which worked very nicely. So when I talk about neuroticism in this talk, I mean a combination of the first 4 with a negative loading of neuroticism with a positive loading of all the others. We didn't invent that. That's the common pattern, and openness is completely independent of that. So it's much more handy to work with 2 dimensions than with 5, and actually it explained about 65% of the variation in the data set, so it was okay. Cat personality was analyzed in the test situation, or the data were taken during the test situation. For example, whether the cat accompanied the owner to the door when the observers arrived, whether and how much the cat hid during the 4 visits. The cat responses to this novel object were scored. Suddenly there was a plush owl on the carpet the cat never has seen before, and some cats simply ignored, and others made, okay. So the cat's response to a pickup test by the owner and by the stranger, and of course to observer scoring from videotapes, which we did according to parameters we found in the literature. You have these parameters here, the behavioral parameters, and when we did a PCA on that, we found 4 axes, which were active, playful, anxious, sociable, and another axis, depicted feeding style. You know, there's cats which feed virtually on everything, and other cats are pretty lousy feeder. Okay, so what we found was substantial variation in behavior and interactions among dyads. Of the 98% of the behavioral parameters we found differed significantly among the 4 dyads, and so on and so forth. Of the 39 most discriminating behaviors, most of them were behaviors which were interactive behaviors. I have to be a little bit quicker, I just heard. There's substantial variation according to cat sex, but not owner gender. Well, let's leave it there. You can actually read most of these data in a chapter which will be in the new handbook on domestic cats by Turner and Bateson. So it's not so terrible that I have to skip over most of these results. Neuroticism was a really important factor because the less neurotic, the more neurotic the owner, the less cats showed all kinds of behavior. The more the cat squeaked, the more the owner's face rubbed and kissed the cats, the less the owners engaged in object play with the cats, and the more vocalization owners and cats produced, which were undefined, which means we didn't have them in our original list. So particular owners high on neuroticism showed varied, close, and intense affiliative interactions with their devoted cats. Openness, let's skip over the details. The conclusion is that owners high in openness are less close relationship-driven than highly neuroticistic owner, but are more interactive. They invest more in object play, for example, and have relative confident, bold cats. Owner gender and personality also had a role. Well, cat age and cat personality affected the time structure of the temporal interactions. And to come to the conclusions, we can do that in the coffee break if you want, but to come to the conclusions, there was substantial variation in behavior and interactions among dyads, particularly in communicative and interactive behaviors. Yes, owners are to a certain extent right when they say they have very unique relationships, but they are not completely right, because there's also substantial variation between dyads according to cat sex, but not owner gender. So cat sex is influencing the interactions much more than the gender of the owner. There was substantial variation according to owner personality. Notably, neuroticism and openness were important. Owner gender and owner personality affected the time structure of the temporal interactions. So interactions, the complexity of interactions depended actually on these parameters, and cat age and cat personality also affected the time structure of these temporal interactions. Well, the future will be measuring mutual attachment and see how this is related with owners and cat personalities. We're just working, elaborating on instruments which probably can use to measure owner companion animal and companion animal owner attachment in a relatively new way. And we can use that for dogs and cats, and that's it. And if I don't stop, Beth will kill me. Okay, thank you very much.